Doc Shaw finally spoke out after years of being quiet. What he just said about Tyler Perry is absolutely shocking. There are scandals, broken trust, and hidden facts about one of Hollywood's most powerful moguls that could make us question everything we thought we knew about them. You won't believe what Doc showed on camera and why it's making waves in the entertainment business. Everything has changed. You may remember Doc Shaw as a child star from House of Pain and The Sweet Life on Deck. He has been surprisingly quiet over the years, even though his name has been linked to Tyler Perry, one of the biggest names in black culture. Things changed lately in a shocking way that has fans and the media scrambling to find out what happened. Doc Shaw finally spoke out against Tyler Perry, bringing to light problems that have been building for a long time behind the scenes. Did anyone take advantage of people on Perry's sets? Were kids like Doc pushed to the side when the cameras stopped rolling? Why now, after all these years? Ew. Does Doc finally say something? In this in-depth look, we'll look at the real reason behind Doc Shaw's public comments, Tyler Perry's recent legal problems, and the shocking accusations that could change the public image of a man Hollywood has thought was untouchable. There is more to this than just a star fight. Power, lying, being in charge, and finally the truth. Stay with us because what you're about to hear isn't just a guess. It comes from Doc himself. Now believe us, this is where things get interesting. Doc Shaw was just a young boy with a dream before he became famous and caused a lot of trouble. He became known in his community right away for being smart, charming, and ready for the camera when he was born Laramie Cortez Shaw in Atlanta, Georgia. But it wasn't long before his acting skills got him his first big break. It was a part that would shape his early years and connect him to Tyler Perry, one of the most important people in black Hollywood. Doc Shaw joined Tyler Perry's House of Pain as Malik Payne, Curtis and Ella's funny and cool grandson, when he was only 14 years old. It wasn't just a part in a show. It was a big event in history. A lot of people watched Tyler Perry's shows all the time. Doc became famous very quickly because he was part of that process. At the time, Tyler Perry was seen as a thinker and a leader because he made room for black actors, writers, and stories in an industry that doesn't give them enough credit. It looked like a great chance to people outside the group. What no one saw, though, was what Doc would soon hint at. There is a lot of pressure, rules that aren't said, and tight control over image, story, and quiet. Doc was working long hours to meet the strict plan for making TV shows, even though he was young. Doc was supposed to act like an adult, even though his role was funny. Many children who played similar parts may have had dedicated guardians or advocates looking out for their well-being. Doc recently said, though, that those protections weren't always there. Doc said on a recent show that when you grow up in that kind of attention, you grow up quickly, but sometimes you have to grow up silent because you can't speak out when the person who signs your check also controls your future. Though it was said in a subtle way, that comment was the first thing that broke the polished image that many people had of Tyler Perry's kingdom. Also, don't forget that Doc wasn't just a minor figure. He quickly became one of TV's most recognizable young black faces. After House of Pain, he got a big part on The Sweet Life on Deck on the Disney Channel, which made him a popular teen star. But even with all the fame, there was always something missing. The chance to be creative, have a say, or even just be treated with care behind the scenes. But what did they do after the cameras stopped? Why did Doc Shaw start to pull away from Tyler Perry's business? And what caused them to be apart for years in peace? With each new season of House of Pain, fans couldn't help but notice something odd. Doc Shaw was getting less and less screen time. At first, it looked like a normal change. Malik might have been going to college. It's possible that the plot was changing, but something very different was going on behind the scenes. By the middle of the 2000s, Doc Shaw was almost never seen in Tyler Perry's movies. There will be no spin-offs, features in the ever-worsening perverse or public work with the man who helped him get his start. It wasn't obvious, but it was there. What did happen? At the time, people who were close to the production said that tensions were rising over creative control, contract restrictions, and the stifling work environment that many Tyler Perry players have complained about behind closed doors but rarely dared to speak out in public. Doc Shaw started to ask questions as he got older and found his voice as a young man. Reports say he wanted to have a bigger say in how his character developed and for the writing room to have more different kinds of people. He even tried to bring in his own project ideas. That didn't go over well with Tyler Perry, who is known for writing, directing, and creating almost all of his own work. One insider said that there is no room to breathe when you work for someone who decides every line of the plot, every camera angle, and every casting choice. And if you fight back, you go away. And he did go away. When House of Pain came back in 2020, fans were shocked to see that Doc Shaw's part had been cut down a lot. Malik was now less of a main figure and only showed up sometimes. There wasn't any kind of announcement, news release, or explanation. There was only silence. A lot of people thought Doc had just moved on. But after what he said recently, it's clear he didn't leave on his own. He was moved out of the way. In an interview that came up again in 2023, Doc hinted at bigger problems. People believe you're living the dream since you're on TV. But the truth is that you live in someone else's story sometimes because they won't let you write your own. People who like Tyler Perry started to see cracks in his public image, which was built on faith, family, and strength in strength. That line hit home with fans. But what does it say about the empire behind the camera if performers like Doc felt helpless, overworked, and unheard? The best part is now here. Doc is not the only one who is worried. There are more and more actors, writers, and experts who are speaking out about working for Tyler Perry. We'll talk about them next. Some of what they say is even scarier than what Doc says. Doc Shaw's move to speak out in public may have come as a surprise to some, but those who have been paying attention have seen it coming for years. Tyler Perry's billion-dollar studios, his media franchise's viral success, and his control over multiple networks have not been the only things making people unhappy. A quiet but steady dissatisfaction has been growing. The writers who never existed are raised to the level of a roar. The fact that Tyler Perry doesn't hire writers for many of his shows is one of his biggest complaints to date. Perry happily shared a stack of scripts for the Halves and the Hayvot sisters in the Oval on social media in 2020. He wrote, "I don't have a writer's room. Nobody writes any of my work. I write it all." Fans praised his hard work, but people in the industry were worried. It wasn't just about having power, it was about how hard it is for black writers to get published in Hollywood. A lot of actors, including some who worked for Perry, started speaking out anonymously. They said that this kind of creative blockage causes old stories, stereotypical parts, and a toxic workplace culture where no one feels heard. During a private Reddit AMA, a former Sisters crew member said, "The money's good, but don't expect your voice to matter. You're there to follow orders, not collaborate." Actors who were limited in their ability to be creative. Other people who have worked for Tyler Perry, some of whom are well known, have had similar complaints to Doc Shaw's. Let's look at Monique Key. In 2019, she spoke out against Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey, and Lee Daniels for supposedly avoiding her after she won an Oscar. Even though her anger was about something else, she wouldn't fight for Precious without getting paid. It caused a lot of people to talk more deeply about power, control, and influence in Black Hollywood. Monique had the best words. "Some of these men who say they will help us are the ones who hold us down behind closed doors." Another actor who was on one of Perry's bet shows said she was cut after asking for better lines for her character. She said, "I wasn't hard to deal with. I just did not want to play another stereotypical character with only one trait." It's getting harder to ignore the trend now that Doc Shaw has come forward. One former crew member told a show, "Tyler built an empire, but a kingdom that is built on silence isn't very useful." People start to ask questions. The things Doc said in public not long ago didn't just hurt feelings. They proved what many people had thought for a long time. On social media, people used terms like "Doc Shaw was right" and "DTO Perry accountable" to talk about the events. People on TikTok started posting videos that put together all the times Doc was ignored or given bad lines on House of Pain. Others pointed out character tropes that kept coming up in Perry's movies and TV shows and asked if Perry was really trying to make people feel better or just taking advantage of their pain to make money. People are rethinking the story that Perry is the savior of black media, which used to be invincible. People who have always liked Tyler Perry are starting to wonder if he really supports black voices or if he's just directing them. Things are about to get even worse from here. What did Doc Shaw say in his most recent interview that finally set this fire on fire? What line did they cross? What message did he send to Tyler Perry and the rest of the world that everyone is talking about? Fans have been waiting for this time. And Perry's close friends probably hoped would never come, finally did in a recent explosive podcast interview where Doc Shaw broke his quiet. Say no to more vague Facebook posts. Don't do any more vague talks. This time, Doc was honest, direct, and without any filters. People's jaws dropped as soon as he spoke. The host of the show asked, what was it really like working under someone like Tyler Perry at such a young age? This caused the conversation to quickly and unexpectedly change direction. Doc paused. He looked the camera straight in the eyes and said, "You want the honest truth? It was controlled. It was transactional. And most of the time, I felt like I was just a tool to get ratings, not a kid with a voice or feelings." There was silence in the room. Doc then said that he felt emotionally alone and artistically stifled while he was on House of Pain. He talked about days when he couldn't question the script and had to say lines that seemed forced, repeated, or stereotypical. If he tried to speak out, he was often ignored or threatened subtly. I asked, "Can we change this line, or can Malik grow in a different direction?" But I was told no, there's no debate. Keep your lane and do your job. Doc's claim that Perry's setting, even though it seemed like a family-friendly place, was full of unspoken fear and loyalty tests was even more shocking. As a child, he learned that on a Tyler Perry set, loyalty is expected and silence is rewarded. If you speak out, you don't just lose a role, you disappear. He also said that when he tried to get a more dynamic role in later seasons, he was cut out of major episodes for no reason. He knew I was getting bigger. That was a threat. Doc's comment, Tyler knew I was growing, not just as an actor, but as a man, and I think that scared him. He didn't want a young black man on set with a voice. He wanted obedient actors, that's it, was one of the most powerful parts of the interview. Instead of Tyler Perry's empire being a kingdom full of opportunities for black talent, it was seen as a tight top-down system where people's views are stifled for the sake of unity. Doc made it clear that this wasn't about being angry, jealous, or getting back at someone. It was about finally standing up for all the young actors who felt used, abused, or overlooked, especially black teens and young adults who are trying to find their way in a system that says it will give them power but doesn't always do it. I didn't say anything for years because I was scared. I believed I would never work again, but then I thought I'd rather be honest and broke than quiet and broke. The media answer, a time for taking stock. Social media was on fire just hours after the interview went live. People on YouTube, entertainment blogs, and even mainstream news sites started to talk about it, calling it a turning point for Tyler Perry's brand. TikTok clips of Doc's voice were all the rage. Some of the hashtags that were being used were Doc Shaw Speaks and Tyler Perry Exposed. Even past co-stars started making subtle comments online. Some backed Doc, while others stayed quiet for some reason. There was a story in The Hollywood Reporter. Doc Shaw finally speaks after years of silence. Is Tyler Perry's business based on fear? At the same time, Perry's camp was very quiet. Not a single public answer. Fans are even more interested and suspicious because of the silence. But what's next for Doc? Is this the start of a bigger project to make Tyler Perry answer for his actions? Or will Doc be shut out and called names for telling the truth, like many others who have done the same thing before him? Doc Shaw knew what was at stake when he spoke out. For a long time, Hollywood has been known to ignore people who try to question its most powerful stars, especially when those stars are seen as untouchable icons like Tyler Perry. But Doc said it best, "I didn't come this far just to be quiet when it mattered." The question isn't just whether people will listen now that he's told the truth. That's what people around the world will do with what they hear. A risk that is worth taking. So far, Doc's talk has caused a huge argument online. Fans are split. Some people have praised his bravery and called him a truth teller and a young hero who is finally speaking out again. Some people who care more about Perry's reputation say that he bit the hand that fed him. Doc, on the other hand, has stuck to his guns. It's not about hate. This is about taking responsibility and getting better. In a second comment, he made it clear, "I'm not trying to put Tyler down. It's important to me that the next crop of actors doesn't have to go through what I did. We need more than just quiet. We should get help, be cared for, and have a place at the table." It's a strong message, especially coming from someone who could have kept quiet to protect his job. The lack of noise from Tyler Perry's side. Tyler Perry has not yet made a public response. There were no interviews, news releases, or posts on social media. There was only a deliberate, loud silence. And a lot of people are reading books in that silence. Some people think Perry is just waiting for the storm to pass so that Doc's claims will no longer be in the news. Others believe that the silence backs up what Doc said, that Perry's kingdom doesn't respond to criticism, it just wipes it out. If future projects turn down Doc Shaw and doors start slowly closing for him in the business, we'll know that the truth hasn't changed behind the scenes. A revolution will have begun if this moment leads to real talks, other actors step forward, and changes are made to help up-and-coming actors. 4. Something new for Doc Shaw. Doc isn't just revealing the past, he's also making plans for the future. He recently gave hints about a new project in which he will finally be in charge of the story. A production company that wants to help young artists write original scripts that break stereotypes and tell real black stories without any limits on creativity. "I want to have what I didn't have," he said, "a leader who listens, works with others, and gives people power." Doc Shaw may now be taking on a job that's even more important than Malik Payne's. An agent of change. Doc Shaw's story shows that telling the truth in Hollywood is still risky, but it's also important. It makes us think about tough things. When the people who say they want to help us are the ones who don't say anything, what happens? Is it really success if you lose your voice? Most importantly, will the business world change, or will it keep killing its young? Doc jumped. Now it's our turn to ask and listen.